Brant has been one of the most anticipated characters to pull for in Wuthering Waves, and he is finally here. For those of you who like collecting male characters in gacha games, you're in for a treat. Not only just because his fit is fire, but also his kit is extremely unique and strong. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. I know for myself, I'm still debating on whether I want to pull for him or not on my main account, but what I will say, he does have some cool strengths. Number one being a versatile fusion DPS, because you can have him as a main DPS or a sub DPS. Number two, he can also heal your team and provide shields. That's why he falls under the support role. Number three, his attack actually scales off of energy regen, which can be hard to build out, but it's definitely worth it. And lastly, his ultra skill provides fusion and resonance skill damage, which is perfect for Chun-Li, who's also available to pull for right now. For Brant's combat roles, he falls under support and healer, like I mentioned, with having higher basic attack damage and also the fusion and resonance skill damage amplification on outro, like I mentioned. And here are all the materials you're going to need to get him up to max level. For the title resident material, it can be found on the humanoid type echoes in Renacita. You know, all these night ones all can drop it. The plant material you're going to need is the golden fleece, which can be bought at Rosemary's Apothecary in Ragusa City, and can also be found using collection spots, which these will pop up around Renacita, so it's very easy to find them. And you're gonna have to fight the Dragon of Dirge for the Overlord boss material, Blazing Bone, here at Penitent's End. For what skills prioritize upgrading on Brant first, definitely his Forte circuit, then your Resonance Liberation, then you can do your normal attack and resonance skill evenly, then lastly, your intro skill. And here are all the materials you're going to need to upgrade all of these skills. For the metallic drip material, your best bet is to farm forgery challenges, specifically the one in Renacita called Garden of Salvation, because it will also drop the other material that you need. And for your Calamity boss material, you're going to have to fight Hecate for the Nether World Stare. To maximize Brant's damage and healing, we need to understand exactly how his kit works. Now, the main thing we need to talk about before diving into the actual kit is this theatrical moment. He gets more attack based on his energy regen, like I mentioned. So for every 1% of his energy regen over 150%, Brant gains an additional 12 points of attack up to 1,560. Now, if you do the math, that's another 130% energy regen you can get to maximize this buff. Now, you don't necessarily need 280% because that is a lot to go for, but what I would recommend is at least reaching 250 for the Tidebreaking Courage Echo set, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to our Echo options. The first thing we're going to talk about is his Forte, which is considered Bravo. You can hold up to 100 stacks, and you get it by hitting targets with your normal attacks, your intro skill, and your resonance skill. Now, when gaining these stacks, you can proc what's called Waves of Acclaim. Basically, when Bravo reaches 25, 50, 75, and 100, it heals all of your team members. Also, as a bonus with his first inherent skill, Voyager's Blaze, the healing provided by Waves of Acclaims is increased by 20%, so you definitely want to unlock this as quickly as possible. Going over his normal attacks, I break this down into 2 sections. You have your ground attacks and your mid-air attacks. For the ground attacks, you have your basic attack 4, and you can perform a heavy attack as well. If you time up your heavy attack correctly between your basic attack stage 2 and 4, or after performing the mid-air attack stage 4, you can perform a special heavy attack called Rhapsodic Riff. But his mid-air attack 4 is where you're going to get a lot of damage in and a lot of spinning. Now, I know there's a lot of flavor text here, but the main things to note: number one, he has a mid-air attack 4 that goes through a variety of animations, and it can last a decent amount of time. Number two, he does use his own grapple to get near the target between each stage to perform these attacks. So if you're too far away, or if he fails to reach the target between any of these stages, he just drops back down to the ground. And the last thing that's cool is that you can actually reset your mid-air dodge attempts. So if you already dodged in mid-air, you follow up with another mid-air attack stage and you come back, you can actually reset that dodge attempt. His resonance skill is similar to his normal attacks, where it has 2 different modes. If you're on the ground, his resonance skill is called Anchors Away. He launches himself into the air and blasts the target, dealing fusion damage. Now, once Brant is in midair, his resonance skill is replaced and now is called Plunging Attack. Now, you can proc this at any time and it will deal fusion damage considered basic attack damage, and has pretty much the exact same functions as the midair attack if you fail to hit the target. And for the other inherent skill bonus, Trial by Fire and Tide, Brant's resistance to interruption is increased during these mid-air attacks and gains 15% fusion damage bonus, so you definitely want to take advantage of these mid-air attacks as much as possible. Now, coming back to the Forte circuit real quick, again, you're dealing damage with your normal attacks, your resonance skill, your intro skill. We're building up Bravo, we're healing our team with Waves of Acclaim, but what's cool is that when Bravo is full, it actually replaces your resonance skill with what's called Return from Ashes. This is essentially his nuke skill, where you spawn in a giant anchor. You'll consume all your Bravo, deal fusion damage considered basic attack damage, and generate a shield for your entire team. Now, as you see here, it says casting this skill when in Aflame ends this state after Return from Ashes ends. What is Aflame? Well, we have to come over to the Resonance Liberation. Obviously, his Resonance Liberation is going to deal some decent fusion damage, but it also heals your entire team, and you enter the Aflame state. When in this state, the efficiency of gaining Bravo is increased by 100% when your normal attack and your Resonance skill hits a target, which means we can get that faster, heal our team faster, and also get our NUKE Resonance skill back even faster. Also, if you recall, Theatrical Moment, you know your attack is scaled off of energy regen. Well, that's replaced with My Moment. This increases the amount of points you can get, which is going to increase your attack. So for every 1% of his energy regen over 150, you know, max up to 280, Brant gains an additional 20 points of attack up to 2600. That is a 1000 plus bump to your attack just after casting a Resonance Liberation. Just to quickly talk about the intro skill, again, you'll come in, you'll deal fusion damage, and you'll gain what's called Interlude Pause, to where your next mid-air attack begins at stage 2 instead of stage 1. Now for his outro skill, the course is set. The incoming Resonator gets a fusion damage bonus of 20% and a Resonance skill damage bonus of 25% for 14 seconds. That is a lot of damage, and trust me, it's really good for characters like Chun-Li. And for your left and right column upgrades, we have a crit rate percentage bump and an attack percentage bump. For Brant's weapon options, I would highly recommend pulling for his signature sword, Unflickering Valor. You get a flat attack and an energy regen percentage bump, and since it's a 5-star sword, it's going to be pretty high when it's fully maxed out, which we definitely want for the max attack from his Forte, right? But also its perk, Laughter Prevails, you get a crit rate increase of 8%. Note this is at rank 1. Casting a Resonance Liberation gives a 24% basic attack damage bonus for 10 seconds. Dealing basic attack damage gives 24% basic attack damage bonus for 4 seconds. So basically, as long as you use his normal attacks, it buffs itself right there. Now, if you don't have a sword, we do have 2 other 5-star options. The first one being Red Spring, which is Camellia's signature. We lose out on the energy regen portion, so getting good echoes with energy regen as the main stat is going to be really good. But you do get a flat attack and a crit rate percentage bump with this perk Beyond the Cycle. You get an attack percentage increase. When you deal basic attack damage, the wielder gains more basic attack damage bonus for 14 seconds, and it can stack up to 3 times. Now, you do lose out on the second part of the perk. So when the wielder's concerto is consumed, you get more basic attack damage. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a skill like Camellia's where you can consume your concerto yourself and get the damage bonus, but you still get a decent basic attack damage bump. And the other 5-star sword would be the standard Emerald of Genesis. You get a flat attack and a crit rate percentage bump. With this perk, Storm and Resolution, you do get the percentage bump to your energy regen, which is going to be good for him. And when you cast your Resonance skill, you get an attack percentage increase stacking up to 2 times, so it's going to be very easy to proc. If you don't have any 5-star swords, don't worry, there are a couple of 4-star ones you can use. The first one being Overture. You do get that flat attack and energy regen percentage bump, which will fall in line with his skill, like I said. And with this perk, Ceaseless Aria, when your Resonance skill is cast, you get Concerto Energy. Another option would be Looming Gloss from the Battle Pass. You do get a flat attack and an attack percentage bump, and with this perk, Pale Gale, when you cast your Resonance skill, you get an increase to your basic attack and heavy attack damage bonus, stacking up to 1 time. Another option would be Endless Collapse. You get a flat attack and attack percentage bump, and with this perk, Intergalactic Gaze, when you cast your Resonance skill, you get Resonance Energy and an attack percentage increase. The last one I'll mention is an event exclusive from the 1.4 update, the Somnoir Anchor. You get a flat attack and an attack percentage bump, and with this perk, Meow, note this is at rank 5, you gain 1 stack of Hiss when dealing damage to the target, and you can get 1 stack every second. Each stack increases the wielder's attack by 4% for 3 seconds, stacking up to 10 times. It's a 40% attack increase, and if you switch off the field, it will clear all stacks, and since Brant needs a decent amount of on-field time to start stacking Bravo, if you want to use him solo like that, again, this is a decent sword for some more damage, and when you gain 10 stacks, it increases the wielder's crit rate by 12%. For Brant's best echo sets, you have 2 options in my opinion, one being a main DPS and the other being strictly a sub DPS. If you're going to be using him as a main DPS, I would recommend 5-piece Tidebreaking Courage. Now, I know some people would say to use 5-piece Molten Rift for the fusion damage bonuses, which it's not like it's bad for him or anything, so if you have a decent set to use on him right now before you get a Tidebreaking Courage set, you totally can. The reason I'm recommending Tidebreaking Courage is because it falls in with his Forte, where the more energy regen you have, the more attack you can get. At 2 pieces, you get a 10% energy regen bump, which is nice, but at 5 pieces, this is where the big damage comes in. So it increases the Resonator's attack by 15% base, which is very nice, and when reaching 250 energy regen, which you want on his kit, it increases all attribute damage by 30% for the Resonator. That's a 30% fusion damage bonus just from reaching 250% energy regen. For your Echo main stats, you're going to want the Dragon of Dirge at your 4 cost with either crit rate if you have him S1 or below, or crit damage if you have him S2 or above. For your 2-3 cost Echoes, you definitely want one with energy regen, but your other one can be fusion or energy regen depending on your substats, and for your 2-1 cost, you definitely want attack percentage. The Dragon of Dirge is the only 4 cost you can use at the moment, but it is pretty good. Again, you'll transform to the Dragon, you'll flap in the air and summon a Grief Rift, which is just falling fusion damage, which is insane. You can dodge out of it and then you can start performing those mid-air attacks. But the cool thing is that as long as you have this Echo equipped in the main slot, you get a 12% fusion and basic attack damage bonus, which is clearly going to help Brant. If you want to use them as a strictly sub DPS option, you can do 5-piece Moonlit Clouds. At 2 pieces, you still get the 10% energy regen bump, and at 5 pieces, upon using your outro skill, it increases the attack of the next Resonator by 22.5% for 15 seconds. For your Echo main stats, at your 4 cost Echo, you're going to want to use the Impermanence Heron with either crit rate or crit damage as your main stat. For your 2-3 cost, against the same thing, one with energy regen and the other with either fusion or energy regen, and for your 2-1 cost, attack percentage. Now, the reason you want to use the Heron, whether you tap it to do the slam attack or hold to do the fire breath attack, once the initial attack lands, the current character regains 10 resonance energy, and if you use your outro skill within the next 15 seconds, the next character's damage dealt will be boosted by an extra 12% for 15 seconds. For your Echo substats, we're obviously looking for crit rate and crit damage. Next would be energy regen. Like I said, we want to land between the 250% and the 280% range. And number 3, basic attack damage, attack percentage, and flat attack. For Brant's best team options, if you're free to play, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of great options, but you could pair them up with main DPSs like Chishia and even Havoc Rover, and then having your healers be Baija or Verena, or if you're feeling confident, since he heals, you could also use Sanhua to buff his basic attack damage. For his premium double DPS team, like I said, he pairs extremely well with Chun-Li and Shorekeeper. I know it's a little redundant to have 2 healers on the team, but with Brant having Tidebreaking Courage, he's mainly focused as a DPS option, right? Shorekeeper, healing, crit rate, and crit damage bonuses, that's very nice. The good thing with Brant and Chun-Li is that they both buff each other, right? Brant buffs fusion and resist skill damage, which Chun-Li does, and Chun-Li provides fusion and resist liberation damage, which Brant does pretty well too, which is going to help his Bravo after using your resist liberation, more healing, faster shields, his nuke ability. It just works really well together. I mean, heck, if you're feeling confident, you could replace Shorekeeper with Sanhua, for example, right? Sanhua is going to buff the basic attack damage for Brant. Brant buffs Chun-Li. Chun-Li buffs Brant. You can kind of see the rotation here, right? If you want to use Brant strictly as a main DPS, again, replacing Chun-Li with Sanhua and then having Shorekeeper as your healer is a decent option. And lastly, Brant specifically as a sub DPS, pairing him up with Carlotta and Shorekeeper is going to be pretty good. Obviously, Carlotta's best in slot is still going to be Zezha, but if you don't have her, Brant is decent because he still buffs present skill damage with his outro, and obviously Shorekeeper, healing, crit rate, crit damage. Carlotta's skills just nuke characters. The team kind of works. Now that we've covered Brant's kit, what weapons you want, what echoes to look for, and what teams use them on, let's talk about his damage rotation. Now, just to be clear, I'm specifically talking about him being on field as long as possible. If you do any quick swap stuff in between all this, again, that's totally fine, but I'm just going to be talking about his kit specifically. Ideally, the first thing we want to do is use his intro skill, but if not, you can use his first resonance skill, Anchors Away, to get in midair. Next, if you have his resonance liberation, use it immediately. The reason being is because, number 1, we want to enter the Aflame state so we can get Bravo faster, heal our team, and get the nuke skill faster, and also gain My Moment, which is the increased attack from our energy regen, right? Which means his attacks are going to hit harder after his resonance liberation. Now, if you don't have his resonance liberation, that is totally fine. You can fall into the third step here, which is using your basic attack 4, or what I'd recommend is the midair attack 4 as much as possible. That's why I said use your resonance skill 1 so you can automatically hop in midair and follow up into those midair attacks. Again, use your basic attack, your midair attack, your resonance skill, attack until you can get max Bravo, and then use the Return from Ashes resonance skill, the nuke skill. The big anchor drops down. At any point you need to come to the ground, you can use your resonance skill 2, which is the plunge attack. I do find it as an easy parry to use this, but at this point, you should be close to having full Concerto, which means you can use your Echo skill, specifically if you're using him as sub DPS with Moonlit Clouds with the Heron. This is where you'd use it, and then you can proc your Outro skill, buffing the next character. Like I said, I know there's a lot of flavor text in this kit, and there's a lot of things going on, you know, with his gameplay, especially the mid-air attacks. He's grappling in, attacking, he's spinning, grappling back out, you do the dodge, you reset the mid-air attack. I know there's a lot of combinations you can use, but as a summary, all you need to do, intro skill, Ren's Liberation, attack, heal, nuke skill, outro skill. The last thing I want to talk about is Brant's Resonance Chain and whether it's worth getting multiple copies of him. His S1, by Currents and Winds, the Return from Ashes, you know, the nuke ability, temporarily causes nearby targets to stagnate while casting. The stagnation effect is removed when Brant is switched off field. After casting your intro skill for each flip following the mid-air attack, Brant's damage dealt is increased by 20% for 5 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. His S2 for Smiles and Cheers. There's a lot of text here, so stick with me. Casting your mid-air attack and Return from Ashes increases Brant's crit rate by 30%. Brant's outro skill gains a new enhancement. When Resonance skill cast by the incoming Resonator or nearby Resonators who activate his outro skill hits a target within 20 seconds after Brant's outro skill, Brant blasts the hit target, dealing fusion damage equal to 440% of Brant's attack considered basic attack damage. This explosion can be triggered 1 time per second, up to 2 explosions in total. This effect remains active when Brant is switched off the field. Already, these first 2 bonuses are crazy. S3, through Storms I Sail, the damage multiplier of the nuke skill is increased by 42%. S4, to Freedom I Sing, the shield obtained from the nuke skill is increased by 20%. Casting the nuke skill restores HP for all nearby resonators in the team, 6.6 HP for every 1% of energy regen. So again, the more energy regen you have, the more healing you get. S5, all the worlds and actors stage. Dealing basic attack damage gives Brant 15% basic attack damage bonus for 10 seconds. And lastly, his S6, all the worlds a captain's carnival. Mid-air attacks damage multiplier is increased by 30%. Casting the nuke skill causes a secondary blast, dealing fusion damage equal to 30% of the damage dealt by the nuke skill, considered basic attack damage. So basically your nuke skill just became even more of a nuke. Overall, I'd say his S1 and S2 are very much worth it. And then after that, if you want to go all the way to S6, go for it. The S1 giving a stacking damage percentage bonus just by using your mid-air attack flips is kind of insane. And then S2, not only giving the crit rate increase, which is really good, 30% is crazy, but also allowing him to deal damage off field when a character uses a resonance skill is kind of crazy. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Brant build guide and kit breakdown. Let me know in the comments how your Brant pulls are going. I already saw someone in my community get like 2 of them in the same 10 pull, and I'm like, you are the luckiest person on earth, because that's never going to happen to me. So if you are including him in your team or using him as your main right now, definitely let me know. He's definitely a cool character. He's like a mix between Camellia and Tao Chi, right? Being able to have the spin attacks with higher basic attack damage is literally Camellia, and then also providing the healing and the overshield is basically taking Tao Chi's skills to the next level, which I find pretty cool. Like I said, I'm still debating on whether I want to pull for him or not, so if you want to see me do more pulls so I can do more cool videos for you guys, do the following. In any event, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on any other woo-wah content we have dropping here on the channel. If you didn't know, we live stream here on YouTube and then also over on Twitch. That link will be in the description. At the beginning of a new update, we have Twitch drops available, so if you're trying to get some Astrite and some extra materials, definitely stop on by. Lastly, if you want to flex your pulls, your echo rolls, some gameplay, definitely join my Discord. We have a woo-wah channel specifically for that content, but we also have a variety of other channels in there, including PC Tech, anime, and more. Lastly, if you want to help the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. Now, if you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription, but it's technically cheaper. You'll get access to emotes, monthly badges, and the big ticket item, all of my long form videos early. So if you'd like more information, all you have to do is press the join button next to subscribe, and then I'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next video.